Libya and Lebanon are very different. Yet they witness common challenges with freedom of expression, violations and intimidations against independent media and critical voices, the spread of hate speech and disinformation, and restriction of fundamental civil liberties. Clampdowns on media and activists by state and non-state actors aim to repress dissenting voices, intimidate critics, and fuel division or fear. To all these challenges, civil society is responding with Free Voices, a SWAT horror, a joint Libyan-Lebanese initiative that aims to protect, empower, and connect democratic voices in Libya, Lebanon, and the whole region. Free Voices, a SWAT horror, builds resilience to threats to freedom of expression. Since 2019, 10 CSOs have implemented projects to support journalists, activists and citizens in Libya and Lebanon, and have synthesized the most pressing issues that require a policy response. First, amending key legislation to enhance freedom of expression and of assembly. Lebanon's media freedoms have deteriorated. Repressions by political and security officials have intensified. Various laws and regulations allow those in power to impose censorship. Human rights groups call for prohibition of pre-trial detention of journalists and elimination of prison sentences. Punishments for reputational harm are too severe. Laws are vague, and courts and authorities often interpret them with a political bias. Imperfect provisions in the penal code and the media law prevent journalists from questioning or criticizing the political establishment. The line between restricting hate speech and limiting free speech can be easily crossed. Defamation should be decriminalized and the disproportional punishments for reputational harm should be abolished. The laws should allow for an adequate protection of both people's reputations and of freedom of expression. There should be zero tolerance to attacks against journalists. Second, raising citizens' awareness of the electoral processes and procedures. The recent amendments to Lebanon's electoral law raised the campaign spending ceilings and increased the financial barriers to participation. The legislative provisions discriminate the less established candidates. Observers fear that the elections would be marked by high levels of corruption and a low turnout. Providing services or material support to voters is not considered a form of bribery, as long as candidates and their parties have been consistently providing these benefits prior to election. These provisions pave the way for clientelism and enable sectarian parties to garner influence over the voters. As early as the adoption of the election rules, a robust voter education campaign should be conducted, particularly for first-time voters. To guarantee free and fair election rules, the public debate on amendments to the election law and improvements of the election system should continue. Third, promoting the culture of debate to create a permissive environment for expressing different opinions in a tolerant manner. Lebanese youth grow dissatisfied with the partisan narratives pushed by the major media outlets and are turning to alternative sources of news, analyses, and media debates. It is becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish between the objective presentation of different, well-argued points of view and the one-sided propaganda. Election candidates and MPs avoid engaging in debates with opponents and prefer one-on-one interviews instead. In the absence of debate platforms and a permissive environment, young people refrain from expressing opinions freely, either fearing from legal constraints or missing the skills for debating. Youth should be engaged in initiatives for free expression of opinions and respecting others' opinions. The public media should enhance debate programs, especially ahead of elections. The election candidates should present policy platforms in debate formats to enable citizens to make informed choices. The Free Voices, a SWAT horror initiative, is led by 10 active civil society organizations, operating in Libya and Lebanon. The Free Voices partners work to raise public awareness among citizens, decision-makers and the international community about the most pressing issues with freedom of expression that require a policy response. They put the proposed recommendations to the forefront of political debate in Libya and Lebanon. More details about the issues with freedom of expression in Libya and Lebanon can be found in the special publication by the Free Voices, a SWAT horror initiative. Free Voices, a SWAT horror is supported by the Institute for War and Peace Reporting, IWPR, Reporters Without Borders, RSF, Media Defense Initiative, and Binda Consulting International, BCI, with UK aid funding.